Greetings, pioneers, and welcome. My name is Jeezy, and a significant number of people under the last video requested a more in-depth look at the multi-purpose room. I'm going to break this video down into two sections. The first one is going to be covering the mechanics and kind of the flow of the building. There will be a second section for the overall design of the building, how I achieved that, what kind of blueprints I used, what kind of hex codes I used for the colors, and what kind of things to look out for when you're dealing with a circular building. So without further ado, let's get straight into the mechanics. The general idea is that there is a box at my main base connected to this building via train. Everything I put in that box will get transported over here. So the left input belt brings in anything that I put in that trash container. The right input belt brings in canisters from my oil rig just down the way, and these are necessary for the packaging of the liquid biofuel. Both of these inputs merge here on this master belt, which runs the length of the facility. This central belt is punctuated by smart splitters used to pull materials off of the belt into side rooms for crafting, as well as a number of mergers responsible for dealing with overflow. The first stop we'll be making is at Biofuel A, where wood and leaves are removed from the master belt and processed into biomass, some of which is slooped so that it can be split between three locations, being processed into solid biofuel, processed alongside mycelia for fabric, and shipped out to produce gas nobelisks. The majority of the biomass does go directly towards solid biofuel production, which is also slooped so that I can preserve a small amount of it for use with the chainsaw. The majority of the solid biofuel is then taken up north to Biofuel B, where it is combined in a refinery alongside water from the extractor here, and packaged alongside the containers which came in originally on the second belt, and stored in some dimensional depots up top here so that I have an unlimited supply for my jetpack. Now this section is also where the mycelia leaves the belt so that it can be combined with that biomass that I mentioned earlier for production of fabric. I kind of ran out of space. If I'm totally honest, I forgot about mycelia when I was setting this building up, which is why you might notice that this section doesn't look the same as the rest of the building. It's been retrofitted. Since this area also lacks any coal or iron, which is also needed for the production of filters, I'm just dumping the fabric into a dimensional depot so that I can handcraft them when needed. Alright, let's move on to the second section, DNA extraction. This is where all of the alien bits get turned into protein and then subsequently alien DNA and then refed back onto the master belt to eventually be sunk. Every machine in this section is slooped. I have one constructor for each of the different type of alien bits, and then they're fed into two constructors producing that alien DNA. Since there are two steps to the production chain here, first the bits into alien protein and then the protein into DNA, you can actually multiply your output by 4 if you sloop all of your machines. You don't have to do that, but since it's a finite resource and you're not continually pulling it out of the ground, I figured every alien bit that I pulled in, I wanted to get the maximum value out of. So I've also got this last section broken down into 2 bits. The top section is for power shard production, all of your different colored slugs being slooped in regular constructors, and then just fed back into a dimensional depot. This is the only area where I didn't include some kind of overflow, as shards cannot be sunk, so they'll just gum up the entire machine and stop the building from working. You'll have to go manually unclog it. I actually added another smart splitter that you can't see here because I added it after I recorded the footage that takes power shards and merges them from that master belt back into the storage. I've got 2 double wide storages and a dimensional depot. I feel like that should be more than enough for power shards. If I ever got to the point where I was overflowing that, I would probably start considering how I'm treating these poor slugs. And then down at the bottom here, we come to the end of the chain. I have storage for all of the different food items. Since the only thing that you can craft with these food items is medicinal inhalers, and they can't be automated, I just have all of these food items going into storage. There's an equipment workshop up front, but since they're going into DDs, you can use any equipment workshop anywhere to craft up medicinal inhalers. It doesn't take too long to handcraft them. It's a shame they can't be automated, but that is just the way it is. Additionally, there are a couple of fail-safe crates here for things like if you accidentally dumped some sloops or Mercer spheres onto the belt, they get pulled off right before the sink. This will save you from gumming up the machine. Unfortunately, awesome tickets can be sunk, and I can't actually filter them out. There is no filter option for FICSIT coupons. So you're just gonna have to be really careful not to dump those in, because they will go all the way through and get shredded. You won't get anything, well, you'll get something, but There is actually quite a bit of room just before the sink if you feel like you need to set up any other contingency smart splitters. I didn't really feel the need to. Since I've picked up programmable splitters, it seems like it might be a good idea to just take the time to go down the list of all of the things that I can't produce yet, but are still valuable items that I want to keep, and just make sure that those get split off the belt too. I accidentally sunk all of my circuit boards because I didn't have a contingency for that. So there you have it. That is from beginning to end the functionality of the building, where everything goes, what is produced. I did want to get into how I constructed the building as well, since it is a bit of an irregular shape. Before I go any further, I did also want to shout out Maker Gaming, as that is the channel that taught me how to make circles in Satisfactory. Without him, I would not have been able to make this building at all. He goes into a couple of other methods and a couple of other ideal sizes for buildings that I won't go over here because I'm just going to be showing you how to make this particular building. I'll be linking his video down in the description of this one, just in case you want to go over there and learn a little bit more. So as not to waste anybody's time, I will let you know right now that the megaprint for this building is included in the description if you would like to just go grab that for copying and pasting the building. If you don't know how to use megaprints, it's a third-party tool called the Satisfactory Sim that you can use to import and export those files. It's a bit more complex than I'm willing to go over in this video, as I feel like it deserves its own time and space. I will be putting another short video out on soon. That said, if you're interested in learning how this building was actually made so that you can go ahead and do something similar yourself, then stick around right here. Before I go into the details on how to create a circular structure like this one, I wanted to highlight a couple of inherent flaws with circular buildings so that you're aware of them and are not caught off guard halfway through a long project. So certain areas will just not match up. There will be things like overlapping, not overlapping enough, strange geometry, and worst of all possibly is the floor clipping, the Z-fighting that happens when you overlap many foundations. It's obviously worse towards the center of your circular platform, as there's going to be more foundations overlapping. There are really only a couple ways to mitigate this. The first one is just use asphalt, since that's the only foundation that seems to not have issues with clipping, or just try to ignore it, I guess. All of the other foundations that I've tried have either some kind of Z-fighting or some strange protrusions, which can create some interesting geometry, but don't really lend themselves to a nice, clean floor. Also, try your best to use the material that you want from the get-go, as once you have the entire foundation down, some of these foundations overlap the other ones so significantly that you won't be able to get at them to customize them. And the only way I've found in-game to paint these inaccessible pieces is to delete some of the adjacent foundations, and that can lead to additional problems later on where you're trying to snap a wall or a fixture to one of these foundations, but it's not there anymore because you removed it to paint something next to it. Alright, I know that was a lot, but let's get actually to the instructional bit now. So what you're going to want to start with is a solid foundation that you leave alone, and this one is actually going to be underneath the base floor level of your foundation. You're not going to want to touch this one. And then just have another foundation on top of it that you use as your floor level. We're going to leave that center one and start building a spoke outwards. In the case of this building, it is 21 blocks in diameter, so counting out from the center, that's 10 blocks in every direction. And this one's easy because you can just zoop from the center and go. So once you have your initial large cross down, we're going to delete the middle 5 pieces, leave that underneath foundation as we're going to need to snap to it. Then grab another foundation. You're going to want to hold down your snap to global grid key. By default, it's Control. And if you don't know, that key is not just for attaching things to a global grid while you're building out in the world. It's also for making micro adjustments to things like the placement of items. In this case, you can rotate a foundation by 5 degrees every time you scroll your mouse wheel. For the 21 diameter platform, we're going to adjust the foundation by 5 degrees and then go out with another massive cross. As long as you know how to do that first step, you can make a circular platform of 21 diameter. You're just going to keep doing that over and over again until it eventually comes back and meets at the end. And there you have it, a big circular platform. You can fill these empty spaces in with foundations if you want a solid platform, but for my purposes, I would be deleting the entire central cross once again, and then clearing out a layer of foundation so that I could leave that open area in the center for the coral reef viewing area. Then I put up some windows in the center, put up some walls a couple of foundations away, and began outlining the spaces that I wanted to use for my rooms. Even though I don't want to go through the entire construction process of this building because that would take forever for one, and for two, I think it's a lot more interesting if your building is slightly different than mine. I will be giving you a couple of tips that I feel like make the construction of this building much simpler. The 3 tips which I think will save you the most time are how to make circular belts, how to put a roof on a circular structure, and how to do the inlaid signage on the outside of the building and also within the lobby. In the case of circular belts, I actually recommend using the conveyor walls and then use some stackable conveyor poles in between the holes on the conveyor walls so that you create nice, clean, straight pieces alongside the conveyor walls so that you can use smart splitters to peel resources off. So long as you do it this way, you'll have a nice circular conveyor spanning the length of the building, and you also won't ever run into an issue where you can't split a material off through a wall hole and have to, clip it through a wall, if that's something that matters to you. When it comes time to choose a roof material for your circular building, not all of them are made equal. What I had done for my building is just went ahead and used a foundation as a roof. If you want to follow suit, you're going to want to zoop up to the level you want your roof at. Let's just say we want it to be 4-meter foundations high. You're actually going to want to zoop up from every exterior foundation. You're going to want to make sure that you don't skip any, as your building may start to lose definition as you go up if you do. And then from this point, you can just do the same thing that you did before, but in reverse. You can also add some extra shapeliness to your roof by just using ramps instead of raw foundations. Before I get into the section of the video where I show you how to set up the neon light strips, be aware that when overlapping signs, it can create some pretty awful light patterns, and if you are photosensitive, it may be uncomfortable. The clips that I grabbed for this particular video aren't that bad, just approach the usage of these things with caution. To start the external light strip, you're going to want to create some evenly spaced vertical beams. 3 or 4 meters high should do. I'm using the center of these foundations as a guide. Once you've got those in place, change the beam placement mode to freeform and stretch beams between those first beams that you place down. If you do this all the way around your circular building, you'll have a nice surface that you can put signs on, which is slightly indented from the rest of your building. To make the actual light strips themselves, you can use any sign, just try and make sure that they are large enough to overlap each other and fill the space completely. It's even better if they fully clip within the thing that is containing them, as some of the signs have little borders which can ruin the light strips. Next, go on into the sign customization and change all 3 colors to the same one. Go on over to layout and pick the one that does not show any icon. In my case, I also bumped the emission strength up to 2. And to make it easier, you only need to do this on the first sign. As long as you're using all of the same size, you can just copy and paste from one to the next. Add yourself a couple of foundations on the top and the bottom to fully enclose the signs, and there you go. For the signs inside the building, it's actually not that bad. You just take 4 4-meter walls arranged like so, grab a painted beam or an I-beam, stretch it up from the center of the back wall 3 meters, over this way 3 meters, target the end of that one that you just placed down, and then you're going to rotate it 4 clicks downward. Do the same thing on the other side, and then place a large billboard along that beam. You can then place 4-meter windows in front of it, and apply your color settings, and you're good to go. The last thing that I'm going to provide to you before I set you loose are the hex codes. So here's the one for the signs. I have it set to emission strength 2 with a matte finish. Here are the hex codes for the machines. These have a default finish, and I will be putting both of these hex codes down in the description as well so that you can copy paste them. Just wanted them up on screen too. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. That's all I got for you. But if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like or subscribing if you'd like to see more content like this. I've actually been pushed recently over 1,000 subscribers, which is an awesome milestone. So thank you all so much if you are one of those people that helped push me there. If you'd like to help my continued content creation, you can support me over on Patreon. Nothing there yet. I'm cooking up a few things to toss over there, but for now it's just to support me if you choose to do so. You could also consider becoming a member of the YouTube channel. Also, I do stream almost daily over on Twitch at ds_Jeezy. I'll be live there just in a little bit, putting together a computer factory for Phase 3. That's really all I got for you. So stay safe out there, be good, and as always, I'm Jeezy, and I'll see you in the next one.